Alright, we're back in the Beechcraft Starship now, made by Black Square in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. We're going to be going over today how to use our FMS, our avionics system, in order to input a flight plan, and then in another video we're going to actually fly that flight plan, show how we use kind of FMS, maybe some Direct-to features, and kind of some quirks and features of that. But for now we're just going to be going over initializing the system, and then also putting in waypoints, putting in departure procedures, approaches, and all of that. So starting off, we have the airplane started up here. We're just on external power right now. We don't have any engines started. And because we're on external power, we can have all of our avionics set up. We don't need to worry about battery drain right now. So starting off, this is going to be kind of what's seen as our FMS here. Looks kind of similar to some other FMS systems you might see in other aircraft for Microsoft Flight Sim. But trust me, this thing has got a decent amount of quirks and features. So starting off, we have our initialization screen here. This is just what you see when you first power on the aircraft. So we just go ahead and click Initialize System. Next thing it's going to do is it's going to get its closest radial distance to the nearest VOR. What that's going to do, especially if you don't have GPS enabled on this aircraft, is going to help to identify where it currently is, because it's going to be using cross radials and distance from VORs to determine its current location, as well as using that VLF system built into the aircraft. So as you can see here, we have the closest VOR received. If you don't know where to get that from, we can always pull up our approach. Our IFR and route charts here. So we're currently at Truckee Airport here, and we can see that our closest VOR, if I go to the low chart, is going to be the Palisades VOR on 113.2. So if we go back to the flight simulator here, 113.2, we can see we have that set up on VOR 1. If not, then we just need to change this frequency here to 113.2. The aircraft is going to automatically receive it and determine its radial. So you can see it switch from not received to received, and that's how you get the closest radial. I recommend doing that if you aren't flying with GPS. If you are flying with GPS, eventually the aircraft will figure out where it is just because of that signal. But anyways, now that we have the position received and we agree with it, looks good, it's going to be giving us this position, this longitude and latitude. We just verify that looks pretty good. Pretty much if you are receiving the closest VOR radial and distance, you are going to be good. So we can just click all data OK. Now we're going to go to the index, basically the main menu page. We see a message button pop up, or message indication. What we want to do is go to our message button here at the bottom. Click on that, and we can see our VLF system requires initialization. So when we go ahead and update it, there's going to be a few different options. Because we are so close to a VOR, it is going to just allow us to update the VLF from the FMS because it got the information from the VORs nearby. However, if we're in a really remote area, we may have to manually input longitude, latitude coordinates or some sort of waypoint. If that's the case, what I'd recommend is just go ahead and input a waypoint and put it as your departure airport, the airport that you're currently at. And that'll get you pretty close. And then what the FMS will do is it will kind of triangulate and improve that accuracy as you go along. So we're just going to click Update VLF from FMS. That's going to clear out that message. Now, if we go to our sensors here, this is the system control page. This is where we select all of our. This is where the aircraft is determining its position, as well as determining like the legs of the flight. Say from waypoint A to waypoint B. How we're determining if it goes, how the aircraft sequences its flight plan. So if we go auto leg, this is going to mean that it's going from waypoint A to waypoint B, and once it reaches waypoint B, it's automatically going to cycle from waypoint B to waypoint C. That makes sense. Versus manual leg, we'll get into more of this later, but that means that you have to manually cycle once you cross over the waypoint, manually cycle to the next leg of your journey. And then finally, select course is like the OBS function on a Garmin 430. This is very useful for if you're holding at a waypoint. This is basically selecting your inbound and outbound courses to the station. So that's that. If we go to our sensors tab, this is where we see how accurate the aircraft is currently reading our position. So if we go to FMS position, we can see that it's using VOR1 and it's using the Palisades VOR, and it's got about a mile worth of uncertainty with it. And then if we look at our VLF section, we can see it's using the same position based off the nearest VLF station, and its uncertainty is 0.4 miles. And that's giving us, and it's telling us also if it's using it currently or not. So with VLF and VORs, without using any sort of GPS, you're going to get at best about 0.1 mile certainty, versus if you're using the GPS on board the aircraft, you can obviously see that we're getting 0.004 miles of accuracy of uncertainty. And so that's just, shows the benefits of using GPS, as well as, maybe the fun of it if you don't want to use GPS. But anyways, that's enough about kind of the position summaries and whatnot. Let's actually go into the flight planning now, because that was a little bit of a tangent. So bringing up back our flight plan here, we have our aircraft here. I just loaded up a quick sim brief flight plan. You can very easily do it off of SkyVector as well, I think. Using SkyVector is very nice because you can really determine what airways you're using and what departure procedures you want, especially when you get into more of like SIDS and stars, which ones you can fly and which one you can't fly in the Starship, because the big thing with Starship is all the waypoints, they're entered in manually. This isn't like your Garmin 430 or your modern day jet avionics that are able to just immediately select, okay, this is my departure procedure, and it's going to preload all of the waypoints for you. This is very manual. You're inputting them one at a time. So if we start off with our route here, departing Truckee and going to Bryce Canyon, it looks like we're taking the Truck 5 departure and the Truck transition. So if we go to our SkyVector, bring in our departure procedure, it's an ODP. As you can see here, we really only have kind of one waypoint here that we actually are going to even put in, and that's going to be the Truck VOR, or sorry, the Truck fix. My bad. So the Truck fix is really the only thing, and everything else is going to be headings and intercepting radials. So this is pretty easy for us. We kind of have two options that we can think of here. We can either use the FMS for determining our waypoint here, Truck, or we can use just the VOR itself. So for this, we're probably going to actually just end up flying the VOR, but we'll show you how to start initializing that flight plan in the actual aircraft now. So we're going to want to go to the flight plan page here, and now we have enter route or waypoint. We're going to go ahead, and I like clicking on the screen, and you can type in with your keyboard. It's a lot faster. I'm just going to type in KTRK. That's going to be our departure airport. We can go ahead and select a runway by clicking display runways. For now, we're just going to do runway 29 for departure, and then after that we want to select, we can go ahead and click on the screen again, or we can use the kind of T9 dialing system or texting system that this aircraft has on its keyboard here, and we're going to want to go ahead and go, let's see, where's the K, whoopsies, clear this, and we're going to press letter to cycle through to K, then we're going to go B, cycle to B using the letter button, again C, and then finally E, pressing that letter to get Bryce Canyon. And then we're not going to select a runway right now because we're too far away. We don't really know the weather there yet. It could change, so we're just going to press OK. And once that's done, we're going to go ahead and click End Flight Plan. And now we just have a direct from Truckee to Bryce Canyon. So we got the bare bones laid out. Now we can start inputting that waypoint, those waypoints. So from Truckee, I'm going to click on the waypoint, and now we get another menu, and now we're going to be looking at insert waypoint after. This is how we're basically going to go through step by step, adding all of our waypoints. So we know from there our first waypoint is going to be Truck. And then after that, I'm going to have to pull up the flight plan again. We go direct to Yaren, and then here, I'll bring this up on the other screen, and you'll just be able to follow along with whatever waypoints you put in. So again, now that we have Truck as our current the waypoint we want to insert after, we click on it, click insert waypoint after, and now we're putting in Yaren. Press enter on that, and now we go to Yaren, click on that, insert waypoint after, and then we go to the MVA VOR. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. Then after that, we go to ILC, which is another VOR. And then after that, it's just direct to Bryce Canyon. So, we have all of our waypoints set up. If we go to our plan map on our larger MFD screen, or sorry, our larger screen here, we can go to our display. We can determine what we want to show. Like for example, if we don't care about NDBs, we can tell the map to hide NDBs, or if we don't care about airports, tell it to hide airports. Why not? I just leave everything on for now. Go to click on display, and now we're going to be using back to our FMS. We're going to be cycling through our waypoints here, so we can see we have Truckee runway 29 there, down at the bottom of the screen, and then truck. And after that, we go to Yaren, zoom out a little, and then to the VOR, then to the next VOR, and then to Bryce Canyon. So we can use that planning map in order to determine, yeah, we entered all of our waypoints correctly, there's no outliers, there's no weird kind of routing happening there. And our total distance is 403 miles. That lines up pretty closely with what our flight plan says. So that's how we enter our flight plan. Now let's talk about how we go back to our trip planning. Or sorry, we go to our FMS data. Nope. Go to our FMS flight plan. Nope. Fuel management. Yeah, that's the name of it. So we can go to our fuel remaining. We can open up our tablet and we can go to our payload. You can see how much fuel we have on board. So 1,893 pounds. So we can enter that in. Enter in our fuel remaining. Enter in our passengers. We have 8 passengers total. If we were to go see, yeah, we got 6 passengers, 2 crew members, and then fuel on board, cargo, we have about 100 pounds. Everything looks great there. Now, because we've initialized that, we can go to our other screen here. We can go to our FMS. We can go to our performance, or sorry, our progress, and we can actually see kind of the planned endurance as well as fuel remaining now that we've entered in that fuel quantity that we have on board. So we can see it's going to calculate the climb all the way up to cruise, and then it's going to calculate how much fuel burn is going to be left over at the end. And this gets more accurate as you actually fly the plane and it learns the current conditions while flying. So that's really the main ways that we're looking at putting in our flight plan for the system. If we were to have, let's say, a SID that we were flying, and we have certain altitude waypoints we want to meet. Let's say truck we need to pass. I think it actually has a, let's see. Yep, you can see here, it actually has a minimum crossing altitude of 11,500. So let's say we need to cross it at or above 11,500. We can see that it's actually wanting, it may adjust itself as you continue on, mainly because it's very much dependent on the speed that you're traveling. But once you actually climb out and are climbing on the departure procedure, it's going to refine this number and tell you what your minimum vertical speed needs to be in order to be able to cross truck at that altitude. And then the same works for a descent. So say we're starting at 35,000 and we want to descend all the way down to Bryce Canyon's traffic pattern altitude. We put in the traffic pattern altitude and it'll show a negative number, basically the kind of descent rate that we need to have in order to cross it from that current position we're at. So that's kind of how we use the VNAV system. It's very rudimentary. It's not an automatic VNAV system like you may see on more modern jets. It's very much you're inputting the vertical speed, and you're using that in order to kind of maintain that desired descent profile. A few other items that we have are the nav page. This is where we can preload multiple navigation frequencies, multiple VOR frequencies, as well as if we're just using the FMS, we can, and no GPS, we can use nav tuning to enable it. And if we change our nav source to the FMS here, change the nav 1 to that, we can change the automatic. So automatically be tuning in VORs as we go along the way, thus allowing us to kind of maintain that proper position accuracy if we aren't using the GPS on board the aircraft. And then real quickly, just how to change that GPS, using it or not using it. We go back to system control, click on sensors, and we see our sensor control panel. So we have VORDME, VLF Omega, and GNSS and WAS. So if we disable GNSS and WAS, that doesn't give us that very accurate GPS signal. It will just be using the VORDME and VLF Omega. Other than that, that is pretty much the main things you need to know about the FMS system. It's pretty straightforward. As you can see, a lot of it is just inputting waypoint after waypoint, especially if you're on a long flight. I try to avoid really long, drawn-out SIDs as much as possible, just because that can be really annoying. Other things, the direct page, we'll get into a little bit later as we actually fly this route, is going to be basically we're just clicking on the waypoint, and then it takes our current position, and it basically draws a straight line from our current position to that waypoint. It's really straightforward. Big things about these is if you aren't already within about 30 degrees of a turn from your desired fix that you want to go direct to, you're going to need to kind of update it pretty constantly, because you're going to overshoot the turn, then it's going to want to correct itself back in, and you're going to kind of get this kind of S turn going back and forth to get back on that desired magenta line, I guess you could call it. But yeah, other than that, there's nothing too much. Our nav source page, this is how I change between using the VOR and using the FMS. Other things we'll go over is kind of changing between the map as well as the HSI, and then we also have like radar controls here if you're going into any sort of bad weather. Other than that, next video is probably going to be actually flying the Truckee to Bryce route, to Bryce Canyon route, showing maybe a hold along the way, as well as some direct to action, and definitely going more into the system control, the auto leg, the manual leg, and the select course function. That was probably the most confusing part when I first was learning this aircraft. But once you get that down, it's a lot more straightforward on how to do a lot more of the complex things of this airplane. So yeah, stay tuned for the next video. Thank you for watching.